One of our most ancient instincts as humans is fear. As far back as 100,000 years ago, our hunter-gatherer ancestors had to rely on this primal instinct in order to survive. We had not conquered the earth as our own yet. It still belonged to the wild. But as we have evolved and cut down thousands of miles of forests and hunted hundreds of species to extinction, climbing our way to the top of the food chain, a part of that fear still remains within us. Horror movies are a popular form of entertainment that twists this fight or flight instinct into something consumable for thrill and enjoyment. Sociologist Margie Kerr explains this as a phenomenon called the excitation transfer. Quote, "After an accelerated heart rate, heavy breathing, and other physical reactions to fear wear off, viewers experience intense relief. Positive feelings intensify, and, in short, fear floods our brains with feel-good chemicals." End quote. The wearing off of this fear is due to the safe environment that we find ourselves in when experiencing the stimuli. However, we become exposed again when threatening environments that we often see on screen are presented to us in real life. From the darkness of our rooms, fearing the monster under our bed, or at the beach, fearing a murderous great white shark, this fear in these films by association can unconsciously control our lives. We as humans paint a self-portrait of ourselves, the prey to monstrous creatures like apes, sharks, and bears. We do this as these very animals fall dead around us by our hand. We are the predators. Instead of sharp teeth or claws, our weapon is misrepresentation, ignorance, and fear. You've seen Jaws and read the seemingly innumerable stories of beautiful surfers losing an arm or leg to a great horrific shark. But in reality, shark attacks are quite uncommon, with only 137 attacks worldwide, only 9 of which were fatal, and the majority of which were provoked when humans harass, try to feed, or hunt the sharks. On the flip side, 100 million sharks are being killed every year due to the hunting of the animal for their fins. An animal that has survived over 400 million years and multiple mass extinctions. Now, out of the 476 species existing, 120 of which are considered at risk for extinction. But the problem doesn't just stay under the surface of the water. On land, animals like gorillas and apes are also experiencing the same difficulties. In the cult classic film King Kong, a gigantic gorilla is seen climbing the Empire State Building and clawing at airplanes in the sky. This image of a large, threatening animal putting humans in great danger is quite the opposite of reality. These apes are very advanced animals who were taught to learn sign language and are also experiencing threats to their population. Bushmeat trade, disease, poaching, and habitat loss are just some of the threats to this animal's population, many of whose species are considered critically endangered. It's time to reanalyze who is the real predator after all. This is Stephanie Preston, a professor of psychology at the University of Michigan. She's done countless research on the scientific effect our brain has to vulnerability. I talked to her specifically about how this vulnerability, especially in animals, affects us, and how we can change this traditional narrative that all less vulnerable-looking animals are bad and harmful. Why are we, as humans, more inclined to save these seemingly more vulnerable animals?
This kind of evolved tendency to need to protect and care for these cute, fragile creatures, we think is like a almost innate predisposition that also gets augmented during, parenting, and the hormones that change during parenting to be even more powerful in those cases.
How do these emotions that we get when we see a more vulnerable looking animal affect our decision-making skills?
People we find in our experiments and in online donations and charitable giving, they give more money and they want to support charities and they want to save individuals that have these features.
Is there a way we can reprogram how we see less vulnerable animals in order to better conserve more animals who need it?
I really think that knowing more about the species helps. I think these in-person experiences with these animals can really help, and if not in person, in a documentary that shows what's amazing and spectacular and interesting about this animal that they might not know very much about, because I think there are very few animal species that don't have amazing capabilities. Even if they're ones we can't relate to, they can be fascinating. The more you can bring out the life history and ecology of these less familiar animals, I think the better. And even though a lot of people aren't supportive of zoos because they, keep animals housed in environments different from their original one, the zoo done right with enough space and enough enrichment can actually really help bring these animals to people where they are. Like, for example, I don't like snakes. And I probably would never want to give money to a snake. But the the Toledo Zoo actually has, in the Detroit Zoo, they have really amazing reptile houses. And so just seeing the sheer size and amazing beauty of the snakes makes me more inclined to find them interesting and, worthy of help, even though they're the exact opposite of a cute and fuzzy creature.
Was really good. Thank you.